This is a game I recently played on the internet. This position comes from the Sicilian defense, but really the structure at the moment looks a bit more like the French defense. And here white has a bigger center and a nice square on d4 for his knights. And black has a bit of a passive bishop on b7, but he has his own play on the c file. So at the moment it's a bit hard to say how the game will end. So here black played knight c5. This tries to exchange some pieces on the queen side, but at the same time no longer black is putting enough pressure on the e5 pawn. So this allows me to push the f pawn, which is desirable because I want to put pressure on e6. Probably to protect e6 in the long run, black played rook e8. So now he may want to play bishop e8 and then the bishop f8 and then the rook would guard e6. The drawback is that the f7 square is somewhat weakened. So I try to attack it, bishop g5, and the idea is that it does allow him to play g6, but that would weaken his king side quite a bit. He should have here played something like knight e4, and then trying to create counterplay and just improve the position of the knight. This would keep the game fairly unclear. Instead he played g6, which is a significant weakening. So I took on e6. Now, is black forced to capture back, or could he take the piece on h5? It's probably too dangerous to capture the piece on h5. I looked briefly at g takes h5, but then I could capture on f7, and then I get the second pawn back for the piece, and when the king retreats I can play something like rook e3 or f7 or knight f5, and it seems like it's just too dangerous for black to go for something like that. So black just recaptured on e6, and here for a few minutes, for a couple of minutes, I thought about the piece sacrifice on g6. So this is the first of the many sacrifices that could have occurred in this game. So I couldn't quite figure out if it would work if I take on g6. It turns out that the sacrifice is completely crushing. Say bishop to g6, the rook is attacked on e8, so black is forced to take, and now I can play king g4. This is hitting both weak pawns, and it turns out there's no defense. So say king g7, then the e6 pawn is going to fall. So I can take on c5, bishop takes c5, and after knight e6 everything is falling apart. I'm threatening to capture on c5, it's a check. So if black try to capture on e6, then that doesn't help. I can just take here, and knight c2 doesn't really help either, because then white has bishop takes c5 and queen e7 check. In all these variations the attack works really well for white, because the black queen is very far away from the center of action. So white is essentially playing with an extra queen, so that's why he can do things like all these forks. And so this was a very tempting option, but I couldn't quite calculate to the end, and I thought, well, I still keep some advantage with bishop g4. But it turns out the advantage isn't all that significant, although white's still a bit better. Bishop f8. And here I thought that I could take on e6, but it turns out that there's a very unpleasant pin. So if I play something like knight e6, bishop e6, then I fall for rook e6, and after knight e6 my bishop falls. So I had to just settle for something more calm and just have a solid positional advantage. Black has to take c6. I want to counter rook to f6. This was a very dangerous idea. I saw that black could capture on e5, but it seemed to me that the two bishops that I had would be too dangerous, and the weakening of the long diagonal around the black king would be very hard for black to handle. But let's see what happened. So for now, the bishop is attacked on g4, so I retreat. And here black could have played solidly with something like queen d6, just trying to bring the queen back into the game and protecting both the knight and the e-pawn. But black kept neglecting the queen in this game, so he decided to play more ambitious. He played knight f7, and maybe now he wants to play something like e5 with a gain of tempo. But it turns out that because a lot of the black pieces are away from the king side, and the white's pieces are both looking at the king side, I can sacrifice an exchange. So I played rook f7.